For Christmas this year, we did our usual family gift exchange. I got my husband, Mark, a pair of Allen Edmonds I knew he'd been wanting, a solid $400 pair of shoes. I got our son, Leo, the limited edition Star Wars Lego set he wouldn't shut up about. And what did I get? A 2-pack of 99-cent dish gloves from the dollar store and a bouquet made of steel wool scrubbers tied together with a zip tie. Mark bounced Leo on his hip, a smug, doting look on his face. "We know how hard you work, honey. Happy holidays." I took the flowers, the corners of my mouth pulling into a smile so stiff it felt like it might crack. The next second, Leo was looking up at me with wide, expectant eyes. "Mom, you said your hand hurt and you couldn't make my favorite stuff, right? Now you have gloves, so you can cook again." Mark chimed in. "Yeah, and make a few extra appetizers. The guys are coming over to watch the game in a bit." In that moment, the throbbing pain from the cut on my hand was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. Come to think of it, I haven't gotten a decent gift in years. It's not like they didn't know what I wanted. I told them, multiple times, that my hands get frozen riding my e-bike to the grocery store in the winter. I told them I'd love a nice, soft cashmere scarf. A red one. But no. I got a gift that I couldn't even wear out of the house. I could hear Mark in the bathroom, the tinny sound of TikTok videos echoing out. I knew the routine. When he came out, I'd have to go in, open the window to air out the stench of his cigarettes, and then, using the $9 gloves he'd so thoughtfully bought me, I'd have to scrub the toilet rim he and Leo had managed to soil. Just thinking about it made this quiet, simmering resentment bubble up inside me. I headed for the balcony to get some fresh air and immediately tripped over something. Looking down, I saw that the floor I just cleaned was now a minefield of Leo's toys. I couldn't help myself. "Leo, honey, if you're not playing with your toys, put them back in the bin. Don't leave them all over the living room floor." "No. You can pick them up if you don't like it," he shot back without missing a beat. I grabbed him by the arm, ready to have a serious talk, but before I could even start, Mark's voice boomed from the bathroom doorway. "It's just a toy, Sarah." He was drying his hands on a towel, his brow furrowed. "You can just pick it up. Why do you always have to ruin his fun?" Leo looked up from his toys and made a face at me. The anger flared inside me, hot and fast. It was always like this. He got to be the cool dad, and I was cast as the unreasonable villain. I tried to explain to Mark that we couldn't keep spoiling him like this, but he cut me off. All right, we're hungry. Can you just go make dinner?" he added, "and make some snacks for the game. The guys are on their way." I clenched my fists, the stitches in my hand pulling painfully. I said through gritted teeth, "I can't. My hand is injured." "I know," Mark said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "That's why Leo and I got you the gloves." He waved a dismissive hand. "Don't be so dramatic. It's a tiny cut, it's been 2 days. You're fine." I held up my left hand in disbelief, shoving it in front of his face. "It's not fine. I have 2 stitches, Mark. 2. He didn't even glance at it, just impatiently pushed my hand away. "Well, whose fault is that? You're the one who wiped out on your bike. Don't blame me because you're clumsy." He scoffed. "You're just trying to get out of cooking. Stop making excuses." Blood was still seeping slightly around the bandage. A cold, sharp pain shot up my arm. I looked at Mark's indifferent face, then at Leo, who was back to his toys, not even looking up. A profound wave of exhaustion washed over me. The only reason I was out in the freezing rain this morning was because Leo threw a tantrum for fresh lobster and Mark just had to have his favorite steamers. So I was the one who had to ride my bike 10 miles across town to the seafood market before sunrise. I was the one rushing to get the first catch of the day, and I was the one who slipped on a patch of ice and fell into a puddle of slush. The dam of my anger finally broke. "You're right. I'm lazy," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I guess the food just cooks itself. The laundry gets magically clean, and this house just tidies itself up out of thin air." "Oh, here we go," he sneered. "You do a few chores and you think you're a damn martyr. I could hire a maid who'd do a better job and complain less, then hire one. Don't ask me to do it anymore. What is wrong with you?" Mark finally looked up from his phone. "You won't even cook a meal? Why the hell do I even support you?" "You support me?" I looked down at the cheap gloves and the steel wool on the floor and let out a bitter laugh. "With this junk? Ever since Leo was born, I've made sure he has the best of everything. The organic formula, the fancy diapers, it all costs a fortune." I felt bad that Mark was the only one with a paycheck, so I cut my own budget to the bone. I went from my favorite skincare from Sephora to whatever drugstore brand was on clearance. In my mind, Mark was the breadwinner. I knew his job was stressful. To make sure he always looked sharp and professional, I bought him brand name clothes, nice shoes, a good watch. And the gifts I've received over the years? A bottle of laundry detergent. A head of cauliflower. And now, a bouquet of steel wool. It's like, in their eyes, that's all I'm worth. Mark frowned at the floor, then looked back at me. "So that's what this is about. You're mad about the gift." He let out a condescending chuckle. "You're a grown woman, Sarah. You should be happy we even thought to get you anything. Be grateful." He pulled out his phone. "Look, I'm not gonna fight about this. I'll Venmo you $200. Go buy yourself something you like tomorrow, okay?" Fuming, I stormed out of the house and drove straight to the mall. I bought myself a beautiful new sweater and the silk skirt I'd been eyeing for months. Then I went to a bakery and ordered a small, decadent cake just for me. On the way out, I stopped at a jewelry store and bought a delicate silver necklace I'd always wanted. By then it was dinner time. I picked a nice Italian restaurant, sat down by myself, and ordered my 2 favorite pasta dishes. After a good meal, the knot of anger in my chest had loosened considerably. I thought about Mark and Leo, probably still at home, probably hungry. I pulled out my phone to call Mark, but it rang and rang, straight to voicemail. He's probably in the shower, I thought. I got 2 of the restaurant's specialty dishes to go and hurried home. The house was empty. Mark must have taken Leo out. The living room was a disaster zone of toys and cigarette ashes. In the bathroom, someone had deliberately peed on the floor around the toilet. A wave of nausea hit me. Holding my breath, I opened the windows, pulled on the new gloves they'd given me, and started cleaning. By the time I was done, I was so exhausted I collapsed onto the sofa, rubbing my aching back. Just then, the front door opened. Mark stumbled in, reeking of beer. See? I knew it. You spent the whole day doing nothing. Leo, trailing behind him, nodded in solemn agreement. Mark's eyes landed on the takeout containers on the coffee table and the shopping bags on the couch. He sneered. What else are you good for besides spending my money? He turned to the 2 friends who had followed him in. Man, women have it so easy. We're out there grinding all day, and we can't even come home to a hot meal. His friends just laughed awkwardly. Hey, Sarah. Sorry to intrude. They quickly pulled Mark over to the couch. I just stared at Mark's mouth moving, his voice fading in and out. There was a gaping hole in my chest, and a cold wind was howling right through it. When I snapped out of it, they were all set up in the living room, shouting at the video game on TV. Looking at Mark's face, so animated and happy as he joked with his friends, a sudden, overwhelming wave of disgust washed over me. I walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and curled up in bed. For years, it's all been on me. The school runs, the homework help, the parent-teacher conferences, finding the right summer camps. When the toilet clogs, a light bulb burns out, or Leo gets sick, I'm the one who has to deal with it. But if I dare to buy one small thing for myself, it's a cardinal sin. The second I sit down to rest, I'm a lazy, worthless freeloader. He never sees the endless cycle of work I do, day in and day out. He only sees the 5 minutes I take to catch my breath when it's all done. And all Mark has to do is show up for his 9 to 5, come home, and play with his kid for 10 minutes, and he's dad of the year. How is that fair? Sometime before dawn, I made a decision. The next morning, Mark sat at the dining table, his face dark when he saw there was no breakfast. Seriously? How long are you going to keep this up? Are you trying to starve me and your son? I ignored him. Leo chimed in with a sneer, mimicking his dad's tone. I want barbecue ribs. And I want lobster. I looked at them, my gaze slowly moving from one entitled face to the other. If you want something to eat, ask your father to make it. Don't ask me. Leo has always been a picky eater. When he was little, he was so skinny I worried constantly about his nutrition. I spent hours learning new recipes, trying to make food fun, just hoping he'd eat one more bite. Eventually, his appetite improved, and he shot up, taller than most kids his age. I was so relieved. And this child, the one I had poured every ounce of my being into, hadn't said a single kind word to me in days. I knew he was punishing me for making his dad angry. Every time Mark and I argued, Leo would make it crystal clear that he was on Team Dad. Mark scoffed. You make a few meals and suddenly you think you're better than everyone. He stood up. You want to stop cooking? Fine. Don't expect a single penny of allowance from me from now on. He patted Leo's shoulder. Come on, son. Let's go out for breakfast. I watched them walk out the door. I didn't feel angry. Instead, a strange sense of peace settled over me. For all these years, I've been so hard on myself. Always trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother. I thought that if I kept the house spotless and took care of their every need, they would eventually appreciate and cherish me. But all I did was raise 2 selfish, entitled parasites who took everything for granted. When they came back, they went straight to their rooms to play video games, treating me like I was invisible. I was more than happy with that. Mark had a business trip coming up. Normally, I'd spend a week getting him ready, packing everything from his underwear and socks to his razor and chargers, terrified he'd forget something. This time, I knew his flight was tomorrow, but I didn't remind him to get to bed early, and I didn't pack a single thing. In the middle of the night, my phone rang. It was Mark, calling from his hotel. He'd forgotten to pack any underwear. He complained, why didn't you remind me? In the past, I would have immediately Googled convenience stores near his hotel or ordered him a pack on Amazon Prime Now. Tonight, I just said, oh. Then I turned off my phone and went back to sleep. When Mark got back, he ranted for a solid hour about how I had failed in my duties as a wife. I tuned him out. A few nights later, he slipped in the bathroom. This light's been burned out for a week. Why didn't you fix it? He yelled. I can't reach it, I said calmly. You'll have to buy a new bulb and change it tomorrow. He shot me another dirty look. I pretended not to notice. After a full week of me not cooking, not cleaning, and not taking care of him, Mark finally broke. He came home from work with a bouquet of flowers. They were already starting to wilt. Alright, here, he said, thrusting them at me. Here's your gift. Can you stop this nonsense now? He shook his head. I still don't get why you need this impractical stuff. The gift Leo and I got you was actually useful. Leo glared at me, clearly agreeing with his dad. Yeah, useful. I remember the one time I got him something useful for his birthday, a new electric shaver because his was broken. He didn't speak to me for a month. Apparently, useful was a standard that only applied to me. I looked at the sad, drooping flowers and saw a reflection of myself. Mark, however, thought he had one. Oh, by the way, my mom has to go to the hospital for a few days next week. You need to go take care of her. No, I didn't hesitate. What do you mean? No? Who else is going to do it? You're the only one who doesn't work. I already told her you would. You take care of her for a week, and I'll give you an extra $200 for groceries this month. His voice was laced with impatience. Whoever wants to go can go. I'm not going. When I was pregnant, Mark's mother told me, whoever has the kid raises the kid. I don't owe you anything. And she meant it. In all the years since Leo was born, she never once helped out or gave us a dime. For a long time, out of respect for Mark, I still bought her gifts for holidays and took her to the doctor when she was sick. But now? I didn't even want this marriage anymore. Why was I still putting up with any of this? Sarah, why are you so cold-hearted? Mark shouted. That's my mother. Exactly. I shot back. She's your mother. If you and her other kids won't take care of her, why on earth should I? He was furious. Are you ever going to let this go? You don't cook, you don't clean, you don't take care of our son. I was blind to ever have married you. He took a deep breath. You know what? If you can't live like this, then let's just get a divorce. Fine by me, I said, looking him straight in the eye. Let's do it. The house is yours. I'll take the car. We split the savings down the middle. Before Mark could even respond, Leo started shouting. Why do you get to take our money? That's my money, he yelled. You're a bad lady. I don't want you to be my mom anymore. I looked at the child I had carried and raised, and a dull ache spread through my chest. This was the same boy who used to wake up crying from nightmares, who would only fall back asleep if he was tucked safely in my arms. Now, he didn't need me anymore. I opened my mouth to say something, but my throat felt like it was clogged with concrete. In the end, I just nodded, my voice barely a whisper. Okay. I understand. I looked at Mark. He's all yours, then. Reality finally hit him. He threw his phone against the wall, and it shattered. Sarah, are you seriously trying to threaten me with a divorce? He looked me up and down with a sneer. Take a good look at yourself. You're in your late 30s. You think you can have this good a life without me? You couldn't even get a job as a maid, he spat. Stop acting like some teenager throwing a tantrum. Get over it. He could keep his good life. I looked him straight in the eye, my voice firm. I want a divorce. Mark paced back and forth, agitated. He fumbled in his pocket for his cigarettes, stuffed one in his mouth, and flicked his lighter. It sparked a few times but wouldn't light. He threw the lighter on the ground in a rage. Fine. Divorce it is. And whoever backs out is a coward. He ran a hand through his hair. Leo's old enough anyway. If you want to leave, then leave. Don't think for a second that anyone's going to beg you to stay. A cold laugh escaped my lips. Finally saying what you really think, huh? I said. You and your parents never wanted me to get a job. This was the plan all along, wasn't it? Keep me dependent. Say whatever you want, he snarled, his face red with anger. You're the one who asked for this. I didn't say another word. I just packed a bag with my essentials. We went to the courthouse that same day to file the initial paperwork. You really think, he'd said as we left, that you're irreplaceable? After we filed, I went home to pack the rest of my things. Leo was in the living room, throwing his toys against the wall, making as much noise as he possibly could. He was still my son, the baby I carried for 9 months. No matter how you slice it, a divorce hurts the kids the most. I hesitated, then walked over and knelt in front of him. I reached out to stroke his hair, but he jerked his head away. My hand froze in midair. I pulled it back and spoke softly. If you ever miss me, you can call, okay? And I'll come visit you regularly. Leo slammed his toy blaster on the floor. It shattered, and a sharp piece of plastic flew up, scraping my hand. Little beads of blood welled up on my skin. His face was a mask of disgust. Who wants you to visit? You're trying to steal my dad's money. Don't you ever say you're my mom again. He stood up, puffing out his chest. Since you don't want me and dad now, when I'm grown up, I won't have to support you either. I stayed kneeling on the floor, stunned. He was a perfect copy of his father. I shouldn't have let myself feel sorry for him. I gritted my teeth, went back to the bedroom, and started packing faster. I heard the front door open and assumed it was Mark. But it was my mother-in-law. You're divorcing my son, was the first thing out of her mouth. Yes, I said without looking up. Humph, good riddance, she scoffed. All those clothes you're packing, my son's money paid for those, didn't it? And I hear you want half his savings? She planted herself in the doorway, blocking my exit. Forget it. You're not taking a single dime out of this house. She crossed her arms, ready to physically stop me if I tried to leave with my suitcases. I wasn't in the mood to argue with her. I just called Mark. Your mom is blocking the door and won't let me leave. You need to come deal with this. I added, and while you're at it, why don't you tell her whether the things in my closet were bought with your money or my own? Mark was there in less than 5 minutes. He pulled his mom aside. Mom, this is between us. Stay out of it. She wasn't having it. You're too soft on her, she hissed. She lives here. Eat your food. You think that's free? For the last 10 years, we should get, at least, she held up 5 fingers. $5,000? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. $5,000 a year? That's $50,000 for 10 years, she shrieked. And my son's savings are his. He worked hard for that money. You don't get a penny. She wasn't done. And you'll pay at least $500 a month in child support. And when my grandson gets married and buys a house, you'll have to contribute to that, too. I nodded slowly. You know, you might actually be sick. You're clearly delusional. She lunged at me, enraged. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand and smashed it on the floor. She shrieked and scrambled behind Mark. Did you see that? She's threatening me. Sorry, I said, glancing at her with a completely insincere apology. My hand slipped. She clutched Mark's shirt tighter. For the past 10 years, I continued, my voice cold and even, your son has given me money for household expenses. He has never given me a single dollar for myself. Mark's face darkened. He started to argue, but his mother beat him to it. And why should he? Everything you have is because of my son, she screeched. Everything in this house is for my grandson. What kind of mother are you, trying to steal from your own child? You're not leaving until you pay up. Leo nodded in agreement from the living room. I almost had to laugh. You know what? Let's go to court. Let's see how a judge decides to split things up. This house, which we bought after we got married, was worth nearly $500,000. We had both put money down on it. Mark's mouth opened and closed. He finally pulled his mother aside and whispered something in her ear. It seemed even he knew that letting me go without a fight over the house was a bargain for him. When did it get this bad? I couldn't remember. We got married because we were in love. I could still hear his vows in my head. They were what made me walk away from my career without a second thought, to become a wife and a stay-at-home mom. At first, Mark gave me $2,000 a month for the household. He said if it wasn't enough, I could just use his debit card. I tried to be frugal. But then came the mortgage, the property taxes, car insurance, gas, Leo's daycare, his after-school activities, groceries, Mark hosting his friends for game nights. It was never enough. I was afraid he'd accuse me of wasting money, so I started using the money from my freelance work to cover the difference. He was our son, so I figured I should contribute. Then, last year, on a whim, I checked the balance on that debit card he gave me. There was $32 in it. I can't describe how I felt in that moment. I sat on a park bench for a whole afternoon just thinking. When I got home, I gently told Mark that the household fund was running low. He exploded. I give you $2,000 a month. You should be saving half of that. Where the hell does all the money go? I was so angry I couldn't speak. I pulled out my phone to show him the spreadsheet where I tracked every single expense. He waved it away. I don't have time to look at your list of every little thing you buy. Just be more careful. It's not easy being the only one working to support this family. I wanted to scream, but Leo started crying that he was going to be late for his karate class. Every time I tried to bring it up again later, Mark would just say he was too busy to be bothered with such trivial things. It's not like I didn't want to go back to work. But Mark wouldn't let me. Leo is at a critical age. Who's going to pick him up from school and make dinner? He'd say. Whatever you make is nothing compared to making sure he has a bright future. Who's more important? You can't be that selfish. Sarah, you're a mother now. After hearing that enough times, I started to believe him. He provided for us, our son needed a dad, so I just put up with it. But now, seeing their true colors, I knew I had made a terrible mistake. A profound, life-altering mistake. Yes, a child's future is important. But he wasn't just my child. Why was I the only one who had to sacrifice everything? After the mandatory waiting period, I took the day off work and went to the courthouse. I waited and waited. It was almost closing time, and Mark still hadn't shown up. He wasn't answering his phone. Finally, I had no choice. I went to the house and rang the familiar doorbell. It took a long time, but eventually I heard the sound of heavy footsteps, dragging slowly across the floor. The door creaked open. Mark was standing there, hunched over, his face pale and twisted in pain. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. Sarah, thank God you're here, he groaned. Me and Leo both have the flu. We've been so sick we can barely get out of bed. You have to help. My heart clenched. My first instinct was to rush inside to check on Leo. But as I stepped through the door, I caught a glimpse of the entitled, expectant look on Mark's face, and I stopped. I pulled a mask out of my purse, put it on, and then went in. Leo was lying on the bed, his face sallow. He looked like he'd lost 5 pounds. He opened his eyes when he heard me and mumbled, "Mommy." My eyes stung with tears. He was my baby. How could I not feel a pang in my heart? He was never a very robust kid. He used to get sudden high fevers in the middle of the night, sometimes spiking to 104. The doctors could never find a cause. All we could do was give him medicine and cool him down with washcloths. I would stay up all night with him, changing the cloths on his forehead, wiping his little arms and legs, praying for the fever to break. Every time he got sick, I wished I could take it from him, that I could be 10 times sicker if it meant he would be healthy. And weirdly enough, every time he got better, I would get sick. Back then, I thought it was a miracle, a fair trade, but then he grew up. And after all the times he'd stabbed me in the heart with his words, I finally understood. That unconditional love I had for him, it had been slowly frozen solid by years of coldness. Still, seeing him lying there, my heart twisted. Old habits took over. I cleaned up the vomit by his bed, boiled some water in the kitchen and let it cool, then gently washed his face and hands. I asked him what medicine he'd taken and made him a glass of emergency. Leo said he was hungry and wanted steamed egg custard. I looked in the fridge. It was completely empty. I went downstairs to the corner store and bought eggs, noodles, some green vegetables, and a bottle of Pedialyte. Walking back up the stairs, it hit me. I remembered why I had come here in the first place. I looked down at the groceries in my hands and sighed. I still couldn't be that heartless. I walked back into the apartment in silence. I started the water for the steamer, whisked the eggs with some water and salt, strained it, covered it, and put it in to cook. While I was waiting, Mark shuffled into the kitchen, leaning against the doorframe. He said he wanted the special noodle soup I make when he's sick. I didn't answer. I just stared at the steam rising from the pot, fogging up my vision. When I didn't respond, he repeated, more impatiently this time. I said, I want noodle soup. Order takeout, I said, my voice flat. He flew into a rage. I'm sick. Is that one small thing too much to ask? I turned and looked at him calmly. Mark, have you forgotten? We are getting a divorce. You're really going to throw away our marriage over a stupid gift, he sputtered. I honestly don't get it. What did I do that was so wrong? All I'm asking you to do is cook one meal. You used to do it every day. What's the big deal? He pleaded. I'm so sick I can barely stand up. Have you no decency? No memory of what we had? I stared into his eyes. Mark, do you remember what you said to me last year when I had the flu? He looked at me, confused. Clearly, he had no idea. Last winter, he got it first. I took him to urgent care, waited with him for hours. I brought him food he wanted, made sure his water was at the perfect temperature, washed his face, and took care of his every need. But when I got sick, what did he do? He ignored me. He went out all night with his friends to watch a game. He told me it was just the flu, that he got over it in 2 days, so why was I being so dramatic? Now, I was going to use his own words against him. It's just the flu, Mark. Why are you being so dramatic? The vein in his temple pulsed. Is that what a human being says? He choked out. I'm this sick, and instead of helping, you're mocking me? Do you even have a heart? Do you have a heart? I repeated back to him. That's what you said to me, remember? Have you forgotten everything? When you were out all night drinking and having fun with your friends, did you ever once think about me or our sick son at home? I was in so much pain I could barely lift my arms, but I still had to take care of Leo. You came home the next morning, saw the living room was a mess, and started screaming at me for being lazy. I wiped away a tear that was rolling down my cheek. So don't you dare talk to me about having decency. What am I supposed to remember? The way you treated me? More tears came, and I wiped them away furiously. Mark's voice lost its edge. That was in the past. What's the point of bringing it up now? I'll change, okay? I promise. I shook my head. He'd said that so many times before. I'd believed him so many times before. Not this time. Mark, there is only one thing I want right now. As soon as you are better, we are finalizing this divorce. Out of respect for the time we spent together, I'll help you for the next 2 days. After that, don't call me. Leo came running out of his room and stood in front of his dad, a tiny soldier protecting his king. Don't bully my dad. You go away. You're not my mom. I looked at his flushed face, and after a moment of stunned silence, I laughed. Before he was 3, Leo was my shadow. After he turned 3, he was his dad's. I used to tell myself it was natural, that fathers and sons have a special bond. Every time he sided with his dad, Mark would laugh and say, "That's my boy," and Leo would beam with pride. It always left me with a small pang of sadness, but I told myself it was just part of him growing up. But hearing him shout, "You're not my mom," seeing him stand there, shielding his father from me, I finally understood. It wasn't just a bond. It was an allegiance. A blind, unconditional one. In the war between his parents, my son had chosen a side a long time ago. Fine. That's fine. This time, I knew I wouldn't feel a shred of pity. Call me when you're feeling better, I said, turning off the stove. We need to get the paperwork done. They looked like they could take care of themselves just fine. I walked out of the house and didn't look back. Over the next few days, Mark sent me a string of apology texts. I glanced at them and then ignored them. It didn't matter if he was sorry. The damage was done, and a few texts weren't going to fix it. A week later, I figured they were both recovered. I messaged him. When are you free to finalize the divorce? The three dots indicating he was typing appeared instantly, but no message came through. I waited, grew impatient, and sent another message. This time, he finally replied. Do we really have to do this? Yes, I wrote back. We do. Okay. Courthouse at 10 a.m. tomorrow. See you there. I put down my phone and let out a long sigh. It was finally ending. I didn't let myself relax until I saw his car pull into the courthouse parking lot. When he got out, I almost didn't recognize him. It had only been a week, but he looked like he'd lost 20 pounds. His eyes were sunken, and he had a hacking cough. The flu had hit him hard. He cleared his throat and told me Leo was fine and already back at school. I nodded. These last few weeks. I had no idea how much you did, he said, his voice raspy. The bills, the house, my parents calling, trying to help Leo with his homework. I can't do it. He shook his head. I had no idea a trip to the grocery store could cost $300. Or how much his classes and insurance cost. And all that time, I only gave you $2,000 a month. And I listened to my mom. I put most of our money into an investment account you couldn't access, just to protect it from you. He looked at me, his eyes full of regret. I am so sorry, Sarah. My own eyes started to burn. I looked up at the sky, fighting back tears. Not wanting him to see me cry, I turned and walked into the building first, pulling a tissue from my purse to furiously wipe my cheeks. What was the point of him knowing now? It was too late. It wasn't like I hadn't told him. We'd had this fight 100 times. He wasn't stupid, he didn't just figure this out last week. He knew all along. But as long as I wasn't making a scene, it was easier for him to just ignore it and keep the comfortable status quo. Inside, Mark offered to give me all of the savings, saying the extra was to compensate me for everything. I agreed. The house had been his down payment, but I had paid for all the renovations. My original plan was to let it all go to Leo. No matter what, he was still my son, and leaving him that security would make me feel better. But if Mark was offering, I would take it. The savings amounted to a couple $100,000. As he transferred the money, he said, you should use this to buy a small place for yourself. It's better than renting. I nodded. He'd gotten a promotion last year. His salary alone was over 6 figures. He didn't have to worry about money. His mother, of course, called to scream at me when she found out. I hung up, took the SIM card out of my phone, and threw it in the trash. I bought a small 1-bedroom condo. The day I moved in, a young couple was moving in next door. The girl was chattering excitedly, and the boy was listening patiently, smiling and gently stroking her hair. Watching them, I felt a pang of envy. I used to be that happy once. It felt like a lifetime ago. A bad marriage is like a long, debilitating illness. Even though I knew I'd made the right decision, there was a persistent ache in my heart. Late at night, I'd sometimes hug my pillow and cry, missing the tiny, innocent version of my son I used to hold in my arms. I'd ask myself if this was really the life I wanted. Mark kept trying to pop up in my life. One day it was flowers delivered to my door. The next, he drove across town to bring me my favorite soup dumplings. Then a text, telling me to dress warmly because a cold front was coming. It was like we were dating again. I ignored it all. I had been fooled by those small gestures once before. When he was pursuing me, he was perfect. He planned every date meticulously. He was a gentleman, thoughtful and intuitive. He could read my moods from a single glance. If I was in the middle of a video game and texted him that I missed him, he'd quit the game and be at my door in 20 minutes. I thought he was completely devoted to me, that we could build a wonderful life together. When did it change? I think it was after Leo was born. The novelty wore off, and the crushing reality of raising a child set in. His parents offered no help. We were two clueless new parents, overwhelmed by a crying baby. He started using I have to work late as an excuse to come home after the baby was already asleep. At first, I felt sorry for him. I told myself he needed his rest for work, so I took on the lion's share of the baby care. But soon, whenever I needed help, he would pretend not to hear me. I'd have to ask him 3 or 4 times to do a single thing. If I asked him to do the dishes, he would pointedly leave the pots in the sink. I thought maybe I wasn't being clear enough, so I started spelling it out. Please wash the dishes and the pots, then wipe down the counter and take out the trash. Even with explicit instructions, he'd forget 1 or 2 things. Or he'd just say, I'll get to it later. Later usually meant the next day, when I'd come into the kitchen to make breakfast and find yesterday's mess still sitting there. I tried fighting. I tried crying. He always managed to twist it around and make me feel like I was the one being unreasonable. For years, I told myself that men are just clueless, that this was just how marriage was. Then one day I came home early from a visit to my parents' house. He was home alone, and he was cooking, cleaning the counters, sweeping the floor, doing everything without being asked. He even peeled and sliced an apple, stuck toothpicks into pieces, and brought it to his parents who were visiting. He made sure their water was the perfect temperature before handing it to them. That's when I knew. He wasn't clueless. He wasn't forgetful. He just didn't think I was worth the effort. My needs, my feelings, my exhaustion, they were all invisible to him. I wanted a divorce so many times, but I always stayed for Leo. I started thinking of Mark as just a roommate, a partner in the business of raising a child. But when that child treated me the same way, my life felt hopeless. I realized I couldn't spend one more day living like that. Divorce was the only way out. Sometimes, you have to get burned badly before you learn your lesson. Mark tried to manage on his own with Leo for a few weeks and was completely overwhelmed. He asked his parents to help, but after a few days, they made excuses about their health and left. With no one else to turn to, Mark remembered how good I was. All his recent efforts were just a ploy to lure his free maid back. So, when well-meaning relatives would call and suggest I give him another chance, I would just laugh. Reconcile? The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Even my own parents tried to persuade me. They said the fact that he gave me the money proved he wasn't a bad person. They told me to think of Leo, to give him a complete home, but I wouldn't do it. In the last few months, I had come to a realization. I don't have to be someone's wife. I don't even have to be a mother, not in the way I was before. I only get one life, and I'm going to live it for myself. Now, my days are simple. It takes me 15 minutes to clean my small apartment until it's sparkling. I found a good job. On weekends, I cook myself a delicious meal and then stretch out on the couch to binge watch a new show. It's a good life. Maybe Mark jinxed me, because not long after his text about the cold front, I started feeling sick. A stomachache turned into a sore throat and body aches. I went to the doctor, the flu. Mark found out and immediately insisted on coming to take care of me. He said Leo was worried, too. I refused. I hired a home care aide for a couple of days. I ordered food delivery. When the apartment got messy, I called a cleaning service. With nothing to worry about but getting better, I recovered faster than I ever had before. By the third day, I was able to go for a walk. I ran into the cleaning lady for my building, a kind older woman. She asked if I was feeling better and gave me some vegetables from her garden. "Fresh vegetables are good for you," she said with a warm smile. I thanked her profusely. I remembered giving her all my moving boxes, and I guess she had wanted to repay the kindness. Ever since I moved in, the hallway outside my door was always spotless. She told me to just leave my trash bag outside my door in the morning, and she would take it out for me. She'd noticed she hadn't seen me for a few days and had knocked on my door to check if I was okay. Those small acts of kindness warmed me up inside, chipping away at the loneliness that comes with being sick. By the fourth day, I felt great. Walking to work, the sun on my face, I felt lighter than I had in years. This was it. This was the life I wanted. Bright and free. Mark sent a lot of messages during that time. At first, they were questions. Where was the insurance information for Leo? Where did I store the winter clothes? What foods was Leo allergic to? What should he do for a cough? I got tired of it. I sat down and wrote out a massive list of everything I could think of. From utilities and maintenance schedules to where the spare batteries for the remote control were. I listed every monthly bill and due date. It was over 1,000 words long. After he read it, he was silent for a long time. Then, at 2 in the morning, my phone lit up with a single, belated sentence. "All these years, you worked so hard. I'm so sorry." After that, he stopped asking questions and started complaining. About how Leo wouldn't listen, how his parents were no help, how the nanny he hired was lazy. He sent photos. He looked haggard. Leo looked lonely and sad. The house was a wreck. I glanced at them and didn't reply. It didn't stir an ounce of pity in me anymore. Leo started calling me, too. He'd say he missed me and ask when I was coming home. I sighed and told him, gently but firmly, that I wasn't coming back. He would start crying and ask, "Mommy, don't you want me anymore? All the other kids have moms." I would just stay silent. They were the ones who didn't want me. I had given them more chances than they deserved. Eventually, Mark realized I was serious and the messages became less frequent. He'd occasionally send an update on Leo's schoolwork. I finally told him he didn't need to. As long as Leo was okay, that was enough. At the end of the year, my company organized a trip to the beach. As the salty wind hit my face, I felt like I was breathing in freedom for the first time. I took off my shoes and walked barefoot on the sand, a feeling of pure joy bubbling up inside me. From now on, I decided I would travel to a new place every year. The world is a big place. It's time I went out and saw it.